with that, I am going to ask one of my colleagues to assist me by starting the recording, and we'll get that going. So this is Frank Saladis, and I created International Project Management Day, I said back in 2004, and what I wanted to make sure that everyone understands that the purpose of International Project Management Day is it's not a celebration. It's really a day of recognition and acknowledgement, and it's a nice fit having Judith here with us today because she's a specialist in this area of acknowledgement. She even wrote a book called The Power of Acknowledgement. But the idea behind International Project Management Day is to take a day to recognize project managers and project teams and program managers for the work that they do. And I guess over the years, my experience has told me that project management is pretty much what I call the unappreciated profession, and it's about time that project managers had their 15 minutes of fame each year, and hence the idea International Project Management Day. So there are many things that go on in companies around the world. The International Institute for Learning does have a major event every year, and last year their event drew over 60,000 people, I believe. So our speaker today, Judith W. Umlas, Senior Vice President, International Institute for Learning. The topic, Grateful Leadership, and also some information about a program that will be available to PMI chapters and other organizations that might be interested, but we're specifically focusing on PMI chapters. So November 5th, 2015, is International Project Management Day this year, and the request here is to consider acknowledging and recognizing your project managers that you work with, the ones in your organization. Consider having some kind of an event, whether it's a large event that has many organizations involved, or attending an organizational event arranged for by a PMI chapter. I know the New Jersey chapter is one chapter I've been to many times. They have a major event in November every year. Multiple chapters around the world, and also lots of organizations send me notes about the programs that they have organized for International Project Management Day, and you can post it at www.internationalpmday.org. We have in the past, and it's an amazing thing, has had mayors and governors proclaim the day, which is something that would be really interesting and also very beneficial to your organization and to your project management community to get a government proclamation. Okay, and if you're a marketer of project management type materials, maybe you can offer a special IPM Day discount, or simply post we observe International Project Management Day on your website. So before I introduce Judy, I just wanted to go over a couple of things. I wrote a book entitled Positive Leadership in Project Management. And what we want to do is want to make sure that you as PMI leaders, as leaders of your organization, understand what leadership truly is. And I picked this quote from John Quincy Adams. And basically, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. And I think that sums up. Another thing that I can say from Tom Peters in a recent book that he wrote, The Little Big Things, he said, to lead is to serve, period. Now, one other thing I think that we all should be aware of is that in order to be effective leaders, we are in a continuous learning mode. And I like this phrase, this quote, world-class learner equals world-class leader. And what we want to do here in this particular webinar, especially to emphasize it, is to create an extraordinary organization. And I think you can do that with that sincere acknowledgement and this idea of grateful leadership that Judy will be speaking about. So as a leader, as it says here, you are expected to make an investment in your personal growth and in the growth of your team and your organization. Now there's a parallel strategy, as we said. It's your personal growth. What are you going to do? And one thing that I learned from PMI's Leadership Institute master's class from one of the professors, he said, make everyone a teacher. So whatever you do every day, you can learn something new, and that's going to improve your ability to be a great leader. And also, you need to focus on team and organizational growth. So it is a two-part strategy. And the core leadership elements, the things that we as leaders should be focusing on, we've broken into three parts. Strategy. having a vision, and that's a desired future state. Acumen, basically understanding how all the business parts come together and speaking the business acumen of your organization, making sure that you are aware that planning is essential and ongoing, it never stops, and that you have to have some courage to basically look into the future and possibly change direction and take some risks. As far as action, true leaders take action. They are decisive. They make decisions. They communicate effectively, and I like the term they communicate relentlessly. They mobilize their teams, and they have the agility to change direction when opportunities are available. And of course, we are, as leaders, looking for results. We do take risks. We focus on deliverables. We act on opportunities that are out there. And all of these things are a part of leadership, and we need to focus on that, because what's happening today in project management is that the trend is that we are going from the project manager title to the project leader title. So you need to really start thinking like a leader. I like to tell people to think like a C-level. You know, whatever your project is, it's kind of like running a business. You are the integrator, the coordinator. You're the person who has to mobilize people and motivate people. You have to get them to buy into your project. It's just like a business. So consider these core leadership elements as you move forward and you grow as a leader. The ingredients for success, to kind of summarize all of this, is continuous personal growth through self-awareness and self-analysis. In other words, you know, get feedback from other people, do a 360-degree feedback, be conscious of your behaviors in the work environment, get feedback from people that you trust that are going to give you what I call respectful feedback and help you to grow and to improve. We are on a continuous journey of improvement. That you should be positive, effective leaders, and a key factor in positive and effective leadership is the ability to give a sincere acknowledgement, something more than simply saying good job. That you have to adapt to change. But most people don't like change, but leaders are actually change agents, and they have the ability to get people to change through buy-in, through motivation, through relationship building and things like that. That we are very good at establishing a relationship with other people. Most people can't get any work done without establishing some type of professional relationship with other people. You do have to be politically savvy. I find that to be an unfortunate but necessary part of leadership, that politics is a key factor. So we have to be aware of that, but we can do that in a very professional and appropriate way. And the last item here, moving from command and control to listening and guiding, and that's through that authentic communication. What we want to do is have people work with us and not for us, and I think that those are all key ingredients for success. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Judith Umlas. I know Judy for a long time, so to me she's Judy, but the professional name is Judith, and Judy is going to talk about grateful leadership, the critical factor in organizational success, and this reseller initiative for PMI chapters. So with that, Judy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Frank, and I just want to say how really delighted I am to be here for 3 reasons. And the first is to be able to acknowledge you, Frank, for what you have created with your International Project Management Day concept. When our CEO, Laverne Johnson, and I first heard it, we said, wow, that's a really good idea, but we had no idea at the time what it would become, and it has just grown and grown, and our excitement and participation has grown and grown. You're right, we had actually over 65,000 people participating in IPM Day last year and the follow-up, and we really feel at IIL that it's our responsibility to give them a brand new, latest thought kind of day where people can participate. You know, you can come to International Project Management Day virtual platform and hang out in the lounge, talk to your colleagues from around the world. It's just truly amazing. So that was number 1 reason I'm delighted to be here to talk about a way that chapters can really fully engage in it this year. Also, I'm thrilled to be able to talk about grateful leadership. It's something, as Frank knows, we've been co-presenting on this for years and years at numerous PMI Global Congresses, and last year I had the great honor of presenting to the Leadership Institute Master Class alumni. Wow, what a fantastic group of people. I did a 3-hour presentation for them on grateful leadership and still get emails from them saying what a difference it made. And I am just always delighted to pass this around, to give people a taste of it so that they can immediately start using it. I find that no matter how small the taste, it makes a difference. So thank you for having me on this event, Frank, and my intention is that we create great results together. So I've written 3 books founded on the power of acknowledgement, and it's just been a real exciting journey. Next slide, please. So what I hope to accomplish with this taste of grateful leadership today is it's always a huge purpose, because whatever conversation we have about it, and when I say conversation, I really do mean that. I want people to participate in this through the text chat, questions, whatever you can share will be very much appreciated. And the conversation is really about how we, as Frank said so purposefully, we need to keep growing and developing. And those of us who come to this skill, if you want to call it, or competency of gratitude and appreciation are very lucky if it's part of our innate character. Many people don't have that capability, but they work to develop it. I remember getting an email following a webinar one time from a PMP in Spain who said, I love what you presented, but I don't know how to acknowledge people because I was never acknowledged in my family. I was only ridiculed. And I said, oops, this is an offline conversation. And I coached her, and I said, you're going to have to really practice. And I gave her some tools, and we have some very usable kinds of tools like the 5 C's of acknowledgement, and I'm not going to have time to go into them today, but they include consciousness, choice, courage, communication, and commitment. And this year on IPM Day, I'm going to be focusing on courage because that is one of the key challenges to people who want to practice it and don't come by it so naturally. So how do we as leaders, how do you as leaders of volunteers get their full engagement and participation? The only way is to align them with the purpose, for sure, the purpose of your chapter, but let them know that they make a difference, that all of their efforts, which are dedicated to the chapter, and we know, as you know, as chapter leaders, how many thousands of hours it takes to run a chapter, and I may have underestimated that. So I'm happy to be corrected if it's millions. Okay, next slide, Frank. So I'd like to ask you for what your definition of a grateful leader would be. What are some of the attributes, and how does it make you feel when you're in the presence of a grateful leader? You've all known one. Maybe all of you on this webinar today are grateful leaders. I mean, you are leaders for sure. Are you grateful? Perhaps. So what are some of the attributes that you've either seen or that you demonstrate with your colleagues, with your volunteers? Give us just a word or two, you know, for your number 1, number 2, number 3. Let's see some texts come in. So into the chat feature or if for some reason you don't see the chat feature, in the question box. Love to see your comments. I mean, I can give you our definition, but I'd much rather hear what you have to say or see what you have to say. I hope we're seeing them. Frank, are you seeing any? Because I'm not.
Okay, we don't have any comments coming in just yet. I've sent a couple of notes out to ask people.
Good listener.
Julie,
sorry to interrupt.
Okay, I'm going to.
Here they come.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so a grateful leader is one who listens and is not just trying to get his or her next thought across. They are really taking in what their colleagues are saying. Good communicators, yes, they can communicate the mission and purpose of the chapter and also listen to what others are wanting to add to that. Somebody who's kind. Okay, I love that. That's really wonderful. That's such a nice virtue. Somebody who really cares about other people, is concerned about others, says Kay. Yes, what else? Anything else that you notice about a grateful leader with whom you have worked or volunteered? What are the qualities that they demonstrate?
Judy, Beth says someone who shares success with the team who contributed, gets to the heart of the issue to be addressed and not superficial.
Beautiful, beautiful. Just read that again, because I'm not seeing that, Frank. I'm not sure why.
Okay, that's coming in on the questions, and I'll relay the questions, but we have teach other people, someone who shares success with the team who contributed, gets to the heart of the issue to be addressed and not superficial, demonstrates empathy. Okay, these are comments that are coming in.
Those are fantastic. Yeah, empathy is a very critical one, and also somebody who can communicate the success of the team, because, you know, we tend to notice the failures, the shortcomings so much more easily, but the little successes and the huge successes are so important to note and acknowledge. They bring out the best in people, help them work towards their strengths. Very, very good. So, in other words, somebody who encourages others to grow. Lovely. And they bring out the best. Sometimes you, as a grateful leader, will see something about another person that they are not even aware of as a strength. I'll never forget when I was in Brazil delivering a grateful leadership presentation to about 1,200 project managers, and I met with a colleague from Brazil whom I had never met before, and I watched him interact with the people in the conference, you know, clients, potential clients, and I was dumbfounded by his ability to listen and just be totally present as they communicated. And they were just alive and full of energy and telling him things that were amazing to them and to him. And later I said to him, Diego, I said, you have such a gift of listening. And he said, what? The Portuguese equivalent of, huh? And I said, yes, you really give your full presence and attention to the people who are speaking. Most of us are planning the next thing we're going to be saying in response to what they're saying. And he said, I had no idea that was special. That's just what I do because I'm interested. I said, well, maybe you want to design a course for IIL called Listening Skills for Project Managers. You really have the gift. And the next day I got an email from him saying, that communication made such a huge difference to me. I had no idea that what I did was anything special, and my life has been changed as a result of that. So that's when Kay says they bring out the best in people, help them work toward their strengths. That's just a little example of it. All right, these are great. Let's have the next slide. So I want to be clear about this definition of acknowledgement, because I'll never forget that the time I went to speak on grateful leadership and the power of acknowledgement to lawyers and mediators, and they reviewed my presentation beforehand. They promoted it. We had a great turnout. And when I started speaking, I was about 5 minutes in, some lawyer raised her hand and said, "This is not what we wanted to hear. We wanted to hear about acknowledging different points of view and how important that is." I said, "Okay, so I'll go home." And they said, "Well, you're here. You might as well stay." I said, "That's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about the heartfelt, truthful communication that lets a person know how valued and appreciated they are." They said, "All right, go ahead." Well, by the end of the session, they had asked me to come back the following year. So I just like to be clear, though, as to what we're talking about. And you'll see in a few minutes how we really are distinguishing between acknowledgement and recognition and simple thanks, but that'll be in a few minutes. Next slide. I had the great honor of interviewing people either that I personally knew or had heard about who were seen as grateful leaders. And it was so funny. This is for the book on grateful leadership. It was so funny because when I approached many of them, and it turned out we had 11 case studies in the book, almost all of them said, I don't see myself as a grateful leader. I'm just so lucky to have this opportunity, and I really appreciate the people I work with. And I said, that is what we mean by a grateful leader. And so Walter Robb, the co-CEO of Whole Foods, is such a person. And he really talks about, you know, when you love what you do, and that's the case with all chapter leaders. They love what they do, even if it drives them crazy. And they have a caring, if not a love, but many of them do really, if the truth be told, have a love for their volunteers who are sacrificing their personal time for no paycheck and really giving wholeheartedly. Then you can be grateful. And that's what Whole Foods practices. At the end of every single meeting at Whole Foods, no matter how big and how small, they have what they call appreciations. And one person in the meeting will always say, "Who would like to appreciate someone today?" And virtually always there is somebody who steps forth, and whether it's somebody right in that meeting or somebody outside the meeting that will later be told that they were appreciated at the meeting, it's just such a part of their culture and their practices. And I asked Walter, I said, "When did it start?" He said, "I have no idea. We've been doing it forever." And being a little bit of a detective, I went and I spoke to a number of people I knew who worked at Whole Foods, and I said, "Is that annoying that you have to appreciate people at the end of every meeting?" And they said, "Oh no, we love it. If they ever stopped doing it, we would be devastated. I'm not sure I'd want to work here anymore." So you get the sense of how valuable it is to value people. Next slide, please. So what you as chapter leaders face is the engagement challenge to the nth degree. Every leader in the workforce faces this challenge. It's how to engage their people. But most businesses, if not all, operate on what I call the double paycheck system. You get the paycheck that goes into your physical bank account every 2 weeks or once a month, and you have an emotional bank account at the same time that needs to get deposits in it. And if that bank account is not filled, I can't tell you how many people I've met after presentations, during presentations, who come up to me and say, "I'm an example of what you are talking about, Judy. I left a great job at a great company because I just did not feel valued. So non-engagement really affects everything. And I say that engagement is a function of appreciation. Next slide, please. Now, Gallup has been studying engagement in the workplace throughout the world for close to 30 years, and they have almost 30 million people that they have surveyed. And 52% of them in their latest study, 2013, were not engaged, which is a very scary number unless you look at the 30% that were engaged. And by engaged, they mean fully participatory, fully connected, really, performance-oriented. But we can bring these people, the 52%, I think, relatively easily into that 30% and raise that number through grateful leadership and appreciation, the power of acknowledgement. It's the 18% of actively disengaged that are the scary people. You know, have you ever had a chapter member who badmouthed everybody and everything and was really on a mission to, if not consciously, but unconsciously destroy everything that you have your heart set on doing and accomplishing, and all the work that people put into it, the countless hours. So those are the people you'll see in a minute. Frank, change the slide, please. Gallup showed in the productivity study that $450 to $550 billion a year is lost in productivity through the actions and the behavior of disengaged employees. And yet, at the same time, it's so simple. You know, when Society for Human Resource Management shows that people leave their jobs, number one reason because of lack of appreciation, how easy is that to fix? And I'm just noticing somebody texted, a major challenge at PMI chapters is to engage the large number of people who do not participate in chapter functions. That's a great goal. And this kind of a practice of grateful leadership, when you reach out to somebody who, let's say, comes to an event after not having been to 6 events, rather than saying, why don't you come to more events? Instead, let them know how important it is that they're here, and you really value that. Have, your vice president of membership be looking for those people who show up sporadically and say, we really value your participation. What can we do to make it more valuable for you? So that's a great observation, and I'm willing to take some offline time with I'm not sure who texted that. I don't see a name, but I'll give you my email address, and maybe I'll put it in the text chat in a little while. It's judy.umlas, UMLAS, at IIL.com. Next slide, Frank. Okay, now we're going to have a little interactive exercise. I love these. We're going to do 2 poll questions. Next slide, please. One of them is not in our control. The other one is. So the first question, and these are both modeled after Gallup's Q12 survey, and we've adapted it to use the word acknowledgement, but the essence is the same. So we're going to go to the first question. When was the last time you were acknowledged? And you have 4 answers that you could give, but only one. Select one. When was the last time you were acknowledged? And let's say by a PMI leader or colleague or member within the past week, month, year, or not at all? And we'll take just a couple of seconds to have everybody participate in that. So in other words, when were you appreciated demonstrably by another member or leader? And we're going to publish the results as soon as they're in. I'm starting to see the responses. Ooh, I'm seeing a phenomenal number, within 57% within the last week. Wow, can you hear this? That's applause, because that means you are doing this. You're creating this. That's very high for what I normally see. I'm sad to see that 14% have never been acknowledged. That's something that needs to be fixed by your helping to establish the need for and create a culture of appreciation. Okay, let's go to the next question. 63% within the last week. That's awesome. Okay, now this one is, when was the last time that we want to go? Yeah, 63% within the last week, 13, 13, and 13 month, year, and not at all. Okay, we want to see that whole thing shift so that it's 80% in the last week, which would be a great goal. 63 is already fantastic, and a lot more in the last month. Okay, can we see the other question? When was the last time you acknowledged someone and communicated it directly? Because lots of times I am used as what I call an acknowledgement bridge. People tell me how great somebody else is, and I want to shake them and say, you go tell them yourself. And sometimes I make them do that. I've even taken people by the hand and led them to the person and said, could you just tell Joe what you told me about Joe? And they get a little shy and they get a little embarrassed, and Joe gets a little shy and Joe gets a little embarrassed. But I say, so what? Do it anyway. So when was the last time you acknowledged somebody? Within the last week, month, year, or not at all? And remember, only vote once. So far it's looking like 60% within the last week, which is good, but that one is directly within your control. Now remember, there are many ways to acknowledge somebody. With all the technology we have, oh my gosh, you can text them, you can email them, you can leave a message on their phone. There are so many things, and of course there's face-to-face acknowledgement, which is wonderful. But you know, I don't care if it's Skype or skywriting. Whatever it is that gets the idea across. And I remember hearing about somebody in a chapter who bought a bunch of sparklers for someone on their leadership team because they said she was so sparkly she lit up the room, and she was just awestruck by that. It meant so much to her. Okay, so let's just finish this one up. It's looking like 43. Ooh, it went down. I guess that when the rest of you voted, it was, you have not acknowledged anyone ever in the chapter. Well, I'm not going to make you feel bad or wrong. I'm going to say you are a clean slate for taking on this initiative. You can start from the bottom and become a master. And we do all sorts of events, some of them free, some of them low cost. I do a lot of on-site training. I've been to a lot of PMI chapters and led keynotes and professional development day sessions. So I'm available, and thank you, Frank. We can definitely make improvements in your actions, for sure. Now, the appreciation paradigm is something that I've created to distinguish between simple thanks, which I still believe in, and they're still important, and they grease the wheels of all organizations, recognition and acknowledgement. Recognition is the actions more than the who a person is that you're making note of. What did they do that was great? What do you really think they excel at? Letting them know through plaques and awards and recognition days like IPM Day. That's a phenomenal contribution to the world. But acknowledgement is really addressing who a person is, and on a profound and generous basis, letting them know that they make a difference and are truly valued. Next slide. This was a real eye-opener for the U.S. Army at West Point when I went in there and trained 21 leaders who ended up, many of them, in tears because they realized, believe it or not, that while they had been recognized with stars and stripes and buttons and bows, and you could see all the medals that Chaplain Major Davis is wearing, you know, he had never been acknowledged, nor had he acknowledged anyone. And he said, this is the missing piece in the U.S. military. And he got authorization for us to do a pilot program using the power of acknowledgement to prevent military suicides. Then he got whisked off to Afghanistan for a year, and he's just now back. So we're going to pick that up, and our journey continues. But what he says is so useful. He says, I use my influence to better individuals who in turn better others, which in turn betters the world. So he's passing this on and using it on a daily basis. Next slide. This is our last exercise. I'm sorry we've had such a short taste of grateful leadership, but I feel like you're getting the point clearly based on your interactions. And so I want to give you the opportunity, next slide please, to acknowledge a volunteer in your chapter or another chapter or a board member or anyone that you feel you have not generously, profoundly, authentically acknowledged. And I'd like you to just text 3 lines about that person, what you want to say to them. And my intention is that you'll take this little text and turn it into a full communication when you get back to your work and deliver it to them in some form or format. Just copy and paste it from the text chat and put it into your email or something. But text the person. You could say, Tim, I want to say how much I value your leadership in this chapter. It's been a model for me as I stepped into a leadership role. You know, be specific, be succinct, but open your heart. So we'd love to see a couple of those texts come in right now, and then we're going to go on to the next part of this webinar. So let's see if we have any. Type fast, and spelling doesn't count. Don't be afraid to make spelling mistakes. Okay, now I won't know who this is from, but it says, I acknowledge Kay often. I think she's a very creative, high energy, and focused person whom I am privileged to know. And that's lovely because Kay is right here and can receive this email. I'd love to know who sent it. Was that Frank? Was that you, Frank? Frank's a great acknowledger. He really is. And I'd also love to know how that makes you feel, Kay. That was Frank. Thank you, Frank, for being a model of grateful leadership. I know you are one, and your leadership roles in PMI throughout your long history are just a testament to that fact. And Kay, let us know how that made you feel to get that acknowledgement publicly, so that everybody today and all the people who tune in for the recording will know how highly Frank thinks of you. That makes me feel fantastic, she says. Thanks, Frank. That makes me feel fantastic. And, you know, it reaches us on a very deep level, something like that. Okay, that's a great example. If anyone else has one as we go on, text it in, and if we have time at the end, we will definitely read it. Okay, next slide, Frank. Now I want to share with you, this is my segue slide, the topic I'm going to present about at the IPM Day virtual conference. And remember I told you that the third C of the 5 C's is for courage. It is definitely one of the hardest of the C's to put into action. So I'm talking about how to go from cowardly lion to lion-hearted leader. And I hope you'll all turn out for that. It's a live and a pre-recorded presentation. Frank and I both have keynotes, which mean there's a live Q&A after our speeches. There aren't always live Q&As for the other 25 presentations. Next slide, please. So this year's theme of International Project Management Day is ensuring a sustainable future. And we're having about half a dozen presentations on sustainability and how it relates to project management. So we really are seeing this as a bedmate of project management. Sustainability has become a greater and greater focus in the project management world. Next slide. As I mentioned, we have keynotes and recorded video presentations. You will have 90 days to access all of the video presentations. We don't expect you and your members to watch them all in one day. That would be quite a challenge, even though you will earn up to 20 PDUs for doing so. And we give you the documentation. It's all very clear. And there are virtual booths and lounges. You can network with your colleagues from around the world. It's unbelievably exciting. And I imagine quite a number of you have been there before. I'd love to know who participated in IPM Day in the past. Do we have a way of taking a quick tally on that, Frank? I'm not sure we do, but if we do, it would just be a yes or no or a check mark or an X. But we hope you'll all be there in whatever form. But there's an added benefit this year. So let's go to the next slide. For the first time, IIL is offering a no-risk total reward opportunity to PMI chapters. For the first time, we're actually charging a nominal fee to help IIL cover its exceedingly high costs for this event. And so we've decided, let's engage all the chapters as supporters or resellers, whichever word you like better, and share the revenues with them. We have found a way to track it exactly to your website, to your chapter. So if you do a lot of the marketing messages that we will send to you, we're going to be giving you a complete package to send out, social media messages, emails, web ads, but you need to put the web ad/link on your website so that people who click on that and register will be attributed to your chapter. Now that's $11.25 per person. that registers through your website. And you know, we had such amazing participation last year, the 65,000, and a lot of them came from chapters, but we weren't charging last year. This year we've added a lot of benefits, so we are, and you get $11.25. After the event is over, we'll tally it up and send you your revenue share. So it's a great fundraiser. We're not charging anything to you to come on board. And plus, it's really a unique involvement and support of this globally recognized virtual conference, the largest project management virtual conference in the world. Your logo as a supporter will be on the virtual conference website for 90 days following the event. So it's really a win-win. Next slide, please. How do you do it? It's so simple. We have designed the process to be a slam dunk no-brainer. As if there are any people from other parts of the world, I'm happy to explain those terms if you're not familiar with them. But probably you know slam dunk better than I do. All you have to do is send IIL an email, learning@iil.com, and we will send you the proposal letter with everything I've described set out very clearly. And then, should you choose to participate, we'll send you the one-page agreement to sign. The minute we have that agreement back from you, we send you all of the marketing messages, and your logo goes up as an IPM Day supporter. And it is a process that when we were working on the reseller agreement, I told our legal department the agreement must be no more than one page. So it's one page, even with signatures on it. So you could see how simple it is. Okay, Frank, next slide, please. So that is International Project Management Day 2015, with your opportunity to raise significant revenues for your chapter, but only if you participate fully. If it's sort of half-hearted, well, put it up, but I'm not really going to market, it'll be nice, but you're not going to get the revenue. So we will work with you. We will hold your hand. We have what we call the A-team at IIL, which is trained to support that step-by-step process. So Frank, at this point, I'm going to turn it back to you. And wait, before I do that, I see something that says, I have attended the IIL IPM Day event many years, and I don't work for IIL. So I can objectively say that it is a very professional educational opportunity with some of the best presenters in project management. It is well done. The technology is really impressive. I highly recommend it. Kay, thank you. I'm applauding you. And with your permission, we would love to put that on our flyers that we send to other chapters. But we can go offline to discuss that. That is a wonderful acknowledgement of an effort that takes IIL 365 days a year, because as soon as we finish one event, we start the next. And Dr. Harold Kersner always does a keynote, and he is so funny because he delivers his keynote, and within a week after the event is over, we have his next year's keynote on our desks, ready to go. The slides, the presentation, he might update it a little bit as we get closer, but talk about lack of procrastination. So we have some exciting events for you, and we welcome you and all of your chapter members. And one other thing I just want to say is you can ask your chapter members to go to their corporations where they work and use your link. So if you have somebody on your board or who's just a member who works at, I don't know, Aetna, and they send an email out to all of the Aetna employees in that area and say, register, this is my chapter, my PMI chapter, we are funded by your attending this fantastic event. So make sure to let everybody know that the audience is much broader than the chapter, the potential audience and the generation of revenues. Okay, now, Frank, I will turn it over.
Okay, well, Judy, that was very interesting. Made me think about a lot of different things. I hope that the folks that were here attending the webinar got some value out of it, and I'm going to put the email information up shortly so you can get in touch with Judy if you want. Keep in mind that International Project Management Day is a day of recognition. We're not celebrating project management. If you look at a lot of the information that's out there, the PricewaterhouseCoopers does a State of the Project Management report. PMI does a Pulse of the Profession report, and there are multiple other types of reports out there. And even though we made great strides in project management in terms of technology, in terms of methodology, and leadership, and things like that, the fact is that we still have a lot of problems in project delivery. But that's one thing that we. That's why I said this is not a celebration, but we do have to recognize the fact that we have project managers and project teams that spend enormous hours trying to meet objectives that in some cases are highly unrealistic, as basically determined and submitted and insisted upon by executives, and we have to have, in many cases, superhuman efforts to get some of these things done. So because of that, because of the hours, because of the time away from family, giving up a lot of other things to get the projects done, because the project managers are so dedicated, that I felt it was important to show that recognition. And I think that by doing this, by raising awareness of what project managers do and giving them that recognition, that will actually encourage other people to step up and become part of the profession as a career. Now, one last bit of advice here, as I'm posting the PDU information. This is a category B PDU, meaning that you go onto the PMI website and you'll plug this in under category B, and all the information is right here. You get one PDU for this presentation. But my advice to you, and I know Judy talked about getting acknowledgments and giving acknowledgments, but the point here is that International Project Management Day is also about acknowledging yourself. And I have one little bit of advice that I'd like you to pass on to other people that are project managers that you know, is that when people ask you, what is it that you do for a living, you know, what do you do? Most people will say, that are project managers will say, I'm a project manager. And the person who asked that question will either roll their eyes, they'll say, oh, that's nice, or give you some mundane or, you know, very, very, you know, low-key, non-excited look. And that's because you're more than a project manager, and you need to say that. When people hear project manager, they don't really understand what it means. So going forward, if somebody says, what do you do for a living, tell them what it is that you do. I am leading a team that just built the span across the such and such river. Or I'm the leader of the team that just built the world's largest skyscraper, or I'm the team that is generating the next generation iPhone, or something like that, and get people to start saying, wow, you do that? No, tell me more about that, as opposed to simply saying, I'm just the project manager. So it's part of our own attitude that we need to change, and that will, in many cases, lead the organizations to success. It'll lead you to success. It'll improve your brand. It'll improve the brand of your organization. So, you know, express yourselves a little bit differently. Be proud of what you do and tell people what you do, and you'll get a different response. So with that, I'd like to say thank you to Judy for spending time here to explain something about Grateful Leadership, and also this offer that IIL is making to PMI chapters, which to me is an excellent offer, and considering last year's attendance of somewhere between 60 and 65,000 people. If you think about your chapters, you think about your organizations, that resell could be very substantial and could help move the chapter forward in many different ways. So keep that in mind. And let me just put up the email information. So if you need to reach Judy, it's Judy Umlas it's judy.umlas
Right.
at IIL.com. That's judy.umlas at IIL.com, and you can get me at saladispmp at msn.com also. So if you have any further questions, you want to get more information about Grateful Leadership, inquire more about the IPM Day program, and if Judy can't answer the questions, I'm sure that somebody at IIL will also be able to answer those questions for you. So with that, unless there are any last-minute questions, I'm just going to take a quick look at the questions and see if there's anything else that came up. So I'm not seeing any additional questions. So anyway, again, thank you very much for being here. Let me just put the PDU information back up, if I can do that. Okay, I'm all the way back to the beginning. Go to the end. Thank you. Okay, there it is. Okay, one last call for questions. I don't see any other questions here. So, okay, well, with that, I'd like to say thank you for being on the call. I think it was very interesting and informative. And again, contact Judy directly for information about Power of Acknowledgement, the Grateful Leadership, which is a great book, and also the IIL program for International Project Management Day. So this is Frank Saladis saying thank you very much. And as Judy would say, acknowledge someone today.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thanks for having me, Frank.
Okay.